Jenny storms into the kitchen, and it's already chaos. The cafe she moved thousands of miles for isn't working out. The space is tiny, there's no running water, and Sumit is pacing like he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. You can see it on his face, pride, panic, and frustration all mixed together. Jenny feels trapped, juggling the demands of a family she barely knows, a business that's falling apart, and a husband who seems completely unprepared for the reality of it all. Every corner of that cafe feels like a reminder that this move might have been a mistake, and both of them know it. Tensions flare before anyone even touches a coffee cup, and the arguments start flying. You can almost feel the heat in the room, the emotional pressure mounting like a kettle ready to explode. Meanwhile, across the globe, Manon is facing her own storm, navigating family drama and life-changing decisions that threaten to upend her entire marriage. But how did a simple dream of opening a cafe spiral into this mess? How did these small, seemingly manageable problems become the perfect storm for conflict, stress, and heartbreak? You won't believe who finally loses it first in this family showdown. Last we saw, Jenny and Sumit packed up their lives and moved back to India, thinking a fresh start with family support would make everything easier. But fresh starts rarely come without chaos. From the moment they stepped into Sumit's parents' house, tension simmered. Jenny tried to keep a positive face, unpacking her things, but the first shock came almost immediately. Her alcohol was gone, and her personal space had already been invaded. She tried to brush it off, attempting to act polite, but inside she was fuming. Sumit, on the other hand, was doing his best to stay calm, but the weight of unemployment and having to prove himself to his family was gnawing at him. Every glance from his mother, every comment about how things are done here, was like a tiny pinprick, adding up to a bigger irritation. The kitchen became the first battlefield. Jenny offered to cook dinner, trying to follow what she thought was expected, but even the simple act of making spaghetti turned into a minefield of judgment, comments, and subtle digs. Sumit's mom seemed unimpressed. Sumit looked stressed, and Jenny felt like she was walking on eggshells in her own home. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Manon and Anthony were packing their lives for a move to France. Anthony's family had their doubts, Manon's emotions were stretched thin, and the stress of uprooting everything they knew collided with the pressure to make a marriage work. It wasn't just logistics, they were dealing with feelings of guilt, fear, and the overwhelming weight of family expectations. Every decision felt like a gamble. Every conversation carried the potential to escalate into an argument. Back in India, the cafe plans were already creating cracks in the relationship. Sumit had invested thousands in a space that looked perfect on paper, but proved completely unprepared for actual business. Tight corners, no water, and equipment that didn't fit. Jenny tried to stay optimistic, but the reality of managing the cafe while dealing with family tension, expectations, and household chores was overwhelming. Parenting struggles were already showing their faces too, with both feeling like they were giving more than they were getting. Every task, every decision, every interaction added another layer to the pressure cooker they were living in. And if you think it was all about logistics, think again. Cultural expectations were front and center. Jenny's idea of fairness clashed directly with Sumit's family's traditions. A simple comment about chores or meal prep could trigger a heated discussion, and every misstep was noticed. While she tried to maintain some control, Sumit's family wasn't shy about asserting their authority, leaving Jenny caught between her own independence and the pressure to conform. Sumit, meanwhile, was caught in the middle, trying to defend Jenny but also wanting to maintain respect with his family. It was the perfect recipe for friction, and everyone felt the burn. Even little things, like who would make tea in the morning or who should clean after dinner, were magnified into emotional showdowns. Sumit's mom had expectations that Jenny wasn't ready to meet. Jenny had boundaries she wasn't willing to compromise, and Sumit had his own pride and insecurities brewing just below the surface. You could feel it. The tension in that household wasn't just simmering, It was practically boiling over. Every glance, every word, every small gesture carried the weight of unsaid frustrations. Meanwhile, Manon and Anthony were navigating the emotional chaos of leaving the US and starting fresh in France. Anthony's protective instincts clashed with Manon's desire to take control, and both were trying to manage the stress of packing, planning, and dealing with family skepticism. It wasn't just about a move, it was about proving themselves, making sacrifices, and trying to create stability in a life that suddenly felt anything but. Small disagreements about housing, priorities, and logistics quickly escalated, showing how fragile even seemingly confident relationships can become when life throws massive changes at them. By the end of the day, both couples were staring down the reality of their choices. Jenny and Sumit were faced with a calf that might never work, family expectations they couldn't ignore, and an emotional minefield at home. Manon and Anthony were confronting the possibility that France might not be the fresh start they were hoping for, and that family disagreements could follow them across the ocean. Every move, every word, every action was now loaded with stakes. The tension was palpable, the conflicts layered, and the outcomes uncertain. Wait until you see how a single kitchen mishap nearly explodes into a full-blown argument. Jenny stepped into the tiny calf space, and the reality hit like a punch to the gut. What looked spacious in photos was now a maze of corners that barely fit a coffee machine, let alone a full kitchen setup. There was no running water, which is kind of a problem when you want to wash dishes, make coffee, or even clean a countertop. Sumit had poured half their savings into this place, confident he could make it work, but now the cracks were glaring. Jenny's optimism was fading fast, replaced with anxiety that any small misstep could turn into a full-blown disaster. Her mind raced. How will we cook here? How will we manage family expectations? And how will I survive the constant scrutiny? She wasn't just overwhelmed by the logistics, she was facing the judgment of everyone around her, including Sumit's mother, who already had her own vision of how things should run. Sumit was equally stressed. Pride and fear clashed inside him. Years of being labeled the black sheep were now colliding with his desire to succeed. Every corner of the calf reminded him that failure wasn't just possible, it was looming. His frustration sometimes spilled over at Jenny, even though she was trying, even though he knew she was overwhelmed. The problem wasn't her. It was the situation. And yet, watching the calf fall short of expectations brought out the tension between them. Cultural expectations layered on top of that tension made every interaction fraught. Jenny's pushback against being told what to do clashed with Sumit's mother's belief that traditional roles should guide the household and business. One wrong word, one misread glance, and tempers flared. The first dinner in the house after the move set the tone. Jenny, hoping to show goodwill, cooked spaghetti for everyone. Sumit's mother was unimpressed. "This is all you know?" she asked, her voice a mix of disbelief and judgment. Sumit tried to defend Jenny, but the stress of his failing calf and unpaid bills made it hard to stay calm. Jenny felt trapped, working under scrutiny while managing her own stress, Sumit's, and the family's. Even a simple dish became a test of patience, cultural navigation, and emotional endurance. And as she served dinner, every nod, every bite, every critique felt loaded, as if failure was measured by how she handled a plate of pasta. Back at the calf, the obstacles kept piling up. Equipment didn't fit, the water issue remained unresolved, and the space was too small for 6 people to work efficiently. Sumit's family came to inspect, and their reactions were far from encouraging. Questions about layout, functionality, and logistics sounded like accusations. "Did you even think this through?" one asked, not realizing that asking the question was enough to ignite tension. Sumit felt the weight of years of disappointment staring him in the face. Jenny's frustration grew too. She wanted to help, but it was impossible to feel useful in a place designed for chaos. Their fight wasn't just about the calf, it was about validation, respect, and emotional survival. If you've been following, this is the moment tension peaks. Every argument now has two layers: the immediate fight over tasks or decisions, and the deeper emotional undercurrent of fear, pride, and cultural expectations. Jenny feels like she is failing at every turn, while Sumit feels like his family is silently judging every move. The calf is more than a business. It's a symbol of their struggle to reconcile dreams with reality, independence with tradition, and partnership with expectation. The morning routines weren't helping. A disagreement over coffee versus tea escalated faster than anyone expected. Jenny wanted coffee. Sumit's mother demanded tea. Sumit's attempt to mediate made things worse. Tempers flared, words were sharp, and everyone in the room felt the pressure. This wasn't just a small disagreement, it was an emotional powder keg. Every moment, every interaction seemed to raise the stakes, leaving Jenny wondering if she could survive the move, Sumit questioning his ability to lead, and the family questioning if they had made the right decisions. Every attempt to organize the calf triggered more conflict. Sumit suggested rearranging equipment. Jenny disagreed. His mother interjected with her vision. Arguments became loops, with no resolution in sight. The psychological stress was obvious: fear of failure, pride in personal capability, and the constant need to navigate cultural expectations created a tense, almost unbearable atmosphere. Small errors or disagreements didn't just annoy, they became evidence of inadequacy in the eyes of the other. And then came the financial pressure. Half their savings gone, bills mounting, and the calf still far from functional. Sumit tried to stay optimistic, but watching his carefully planned dream falter under logistics and family scrutiny was emotionally exhausting. Jenny's frustration with both the space and the constant judgment only added to the tension. Every plan felt like it could collapse with a single misstep. Arguments over who should handle what was prioritized, and how the calf should operate intensified. Even simple tasks became sources of friction. A misplaced utensil, a misunderstood instruction, or a delayed setup could ignite a heated discussion. Jenny's patience was tested, Sumit's composure strained, and the family's expectations loomed like a constant shadow. Every action carried consequences. Will the calf survive? Will Jenny walk away? Who will break first? The questions hung in the air, unanswered, and each day seemed to add weight to the emotional burden. Sumit's desperation was clear in moments alone. He confided his fears to Jenny, admitting he felt like a total failure. She tried to comfort him, but the stress of being caught between family demands and business disasters made it nearly impossible to find common ground. Their love was being tested in ways small arguments at home never could. Every decision now felt critical, every mistake amplified, and every emotional crack widened. Jenny's struggle wasn't just with the calf or Sumit, it was with the entire environment. Cultural expectations, financial stress, and family scrutiny combined to create a perfect storm of tension. Her every action was measured, judged, and second-guessed, leaving her feeling trapped and emotionally drained. Meanwhile, Sumit was battling pride, fear of failure, and his desire to prove himself to his family, all while trying to support Jenny. The dynamics were layered, complicated, and highly combustible. And just when you think it can't get worse, family drama hits like a storm. Morning hits, and the tension doesn't ease, it just shifts gears. Jenny is up first, trying to carve out a little space in Sumit's parents' house, but even something as simple as making coffee turns into a battlefield. Sumit's mother insists on tea. Jenny insists on coffee. Sumit tries to mediate, but both sides are unyielding. It's tiny, everyday stuff, but in this household, the stakes feel enormous. Every sip, every gesture, every word becomes a symbol. Respect, compliance, independence. Jenny feels like she's on trial, being measured against rules she didn't agree to. Sumit feels stuck in the middle, trying to support his wife while honoring his family. And the kids? They're watching, absorbing tension like sponges. The solo parenting versus solo providing debate explodes quietly in the background. Jenny sees herself handling the emotional labor, meals, and kids' routines, while Sumit feels he's carrying the financial weight. Neither feels fully appreciated, and the arguments escalate before breakfast is even finished. Jenny points out the sacrifices she's making, but Sumit counters with his own contributions, framing it as solo providing. Neither wrong, both frustrated, and both desperate for recognition. It's a subtle yet powerful clash of expectations, cultural values, and personal pride. Chores become another battlefield. Jenny wants fairness, believing that working outside the home shouldn't automatically assign her full responsibility for cleaning and cooking. Sumit's family expects her to uphold traditional roles regardless of her day at work. Tension simmers with every dish washed, every counter wiped, and every misplaced item. Small mistakes feel like proof of incompetence, and small disagreements feel like tests of patience. The emotional load becomes heavy, and both Jenny and Sumit are teetering on the edge of breaking. Even minor routines like waking up early, helping with kids' baths, or managing breakfast turn into arenas for conflict. Jenny resists being pulled into tasks she sees as unequal or unfair, while Sumit struggles to balance defending her with maintaining family harmony. The stress, fatigue, and lack of control over the household environment make every interaction sharper, every glance weightier. Each morning feels like a microcosm of their larger struggles: love, respect, fairness, and cultural friction, all compressed into a few hours. And just when it seems like they might find a rhythm, arguments flare over trivialities that explode emotionally. Will Jenny adapt to the expectations she didn't sign up for? Will Sumit find a way to balance his pride, his family's demands, and his wife's independence? Who cracks first? Who bends? The answer isn't clear, and each day adds new layers of tension, making even breakfast a high-stakes negotiation. The fight over breakfast might actually reveal the bigger truth about their marriage. Manon sat on the edge of the couch, hands gripping her phone like it could solve everything. The move to France was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to escape tension and carve out a life on her terms, but reality was proving far messier. Anthony's family had doubts, their skepticism palpable in every conversation. Every call, every question, every suggestion felt like judgment. Manon was trying to hold it together, but the stress of uprooting her life, packing a household, and facing the unknown was wearing her down. She wanted stability, security, and a sense of control, but family interference kept poking holes in that vision. Anthony, for his part, was trying to be the anchor. Protective, firm, but increasingly frustrating. Every decision had to pass his mental checklist: financial feasibility, family approval, emotional readiness. He could see the tension in Manon, and he wanted to shield her. But the harder he tried, the more it seemed that his efforts were stoking her anxiety. Their conversations bounced between hope and panic. Could they actually pull this off? Could France really be the fresh start they dreamed of? Or was it just a fantasy built on stress and good intentions? The logistics alone were a nightmare. Sorting bills, closing accounts, packing everything in a way that would survive international shipping, it was exhausting. On top of that, they were dealing with the emotional weight of leaving a life behind, saying goodbye to friends, and anticipating judgment from both their families. Arguments sparked over small decisions: which city to live in, which house to rent, how much to pack versus leave behind. Manon wanted control, Anthony wanted compromise, and the family wanted input. The friction was constant. What made it more complicated was the emotional baggage layered into every decision. Manon felt guilty for pushing for a move that might upset family members. Anthony felt responsible for making sure the transition didn't destroy their relationship. Each disagreement was amplified by stress, exhaustion, and fear. And unlike Jenny and Sumit, their conflict wasn't about household chores or failed calves. It was about life-altering decisions, trust, and loyalty. Their arguments weren't petty. They carried the weight of the future, making each fight feel heavier, more consequential. Their relationship was tested in new ways. Manon's emotions were raw. Frustration bubbled over when she felt unheard. Anthony's protective instincts sometimes came across as controlling. Both were navigating the delicate balance of independence, partnership, and familial influence. Even moments that should have been joyful, finding a new apartment, visiting potential schools, packing boxes, were tinged with anxiety. Every step forward carried the question, will this actually work? Or will we regret leaving everything behind? As the family weighed in, tensions spiked. Anthony's parents voiced their doubts. His sister questioned timing, and every comment felt like a critique. Manon's anxiety spiked with each opinion. She feared they were losing control of their own decisions. Anthony tried to mediate, but the stress of multiple perspectives made compromise nearly impossible. The couple found themselves trapped between family expectations and their own vision for life in France, a tightrope walk that left both exhausted and emotional. Financial concerns added another layer of stress. Moving internationally isn't cheap, and every choice, airfare, shipping, housing, added pressure. Manon worried about overspending, Anthony worried about making a practical decision, and the looming cost created tension neither could ignore. Small disagreements quickly turned into larger emotional battles. Their communication, already strained by stress, became more fraught, with every word carrying unintended weight. And yet, beneath the arguments and exhaustion, there was care. Each wanted what was best for the other. Each disagreement was a sign of investment, not indifference. Manon's vulnerability revealed her deep desire for stability and control, while Anthony's protectiveness revealed his commitment to safeguarding their relationship. They were flawed, stressed, and human, just like any couple facing monumental life changes. The question hanging over every moment was, will they actually leave? Will family approve? Will they regret the move before it even begins? Every small decision felt loaded with consequences, and the emotional stakes were enormous. Their journey to France was no longer a simple adventure. It was a high-stakes negotiation of love, loyalty, and practicality. Who knew moving across the world could be this explosive? After days of chaos, exhaustion, and constant tension, Jenny and Sumit finally found a quiet moment. The calf disaster, the household battles, and the relentless family pressure had pushed them to the edge. But in this brief pause, they started to speak honestly. Jenny admitted her frustrations, how she felt overburdened with chores and parenting, while also trying to support Sumit's dream. Sumit, in turn, opened up about the fear and pride that made him so defensive, about wanting to prove himself to his family, and not failing in front of everyone. For a few minutes, it felt like the walls were coming down, and two people weighed down by stress could just be partners again. They began negotiating compromises. Jenny agreed to help with some tasks, but set clear boundaries about what she could reasonably manage after work. Sumit acknowledged that he needed to take more initiative at home and promised to respect her limits. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was progress, a shared understanding that their relationship could survive pressure if they communicated and recognized each other's efforts. Family interference didn't disappear, but both realized that their priorities had to come first, even in the face of parental expectations. Meanwhile, Manon and Anthony had a similar moment in France. After weeks of family disputes, financial stress, and emotional tension, they shared a heart-to-heart about what they truly wanted for their future. Manon's fears of moving, compounded by criticism from Anthony's relatives, were met with reassurance and empathy. Anthony's protective instincts softened into compromise. Both recognized that love required patience and understanding, and that making decisions together, even when challenging, was more sustainable than letting stress dictate every step. These reconciliations offered relief, but the tension didn't fully disappear. Cultural clashes, financial uncertainty, and lingering family pressure remained as open loops, threads ready to spark conflict in the next episode. Jenny and Sumit still had to face the cafe's precarious setup, while Manon and Anthony had to manage life in a new country with logistical hurdles and skeptical relatives. The calm felt temporary, like the eye of a storm before the next wave hits. They might forgive, but nothing here is settled yet, and the next episode could change everything. The storm isn't over for either couple. Jenny and Sumit are still navigating a tiny calf, family expectations, and the delicate balance of solo parenting versus solo providing. Every misstep, every argument, every financial strain hangs over them like a warning, and neither of them can afford to let their guard down. Meanwhile, Manon and Anthony are just landing in France, juggling new homes, skeptical family members, and the pressure of starting a life across the world. Every decision they make could either bring relief or ignite chaos. Both couples are at a crossroads. Tensions are simmering, loyalties are being tested, and the smallest triggers could explode into major conflict. Financial risks, cultural clashes, and emotional fatigue are pushing everyone to their limits. The drama is real, the stakes are high, and peace feels fleeting. Fans who think the worst is over will be shocked by how quickly everything can unravel. Next week, one decision could tear everything apart, and no one will see it coming.